We are rolling.
Good morning. Welcome back to the conversation. This is Midlife Crisis Activity. This is our daily lifestyle and pop culture webcast, our daily shout out to the world. I am your host, Patrick Russell. Over there is my very vivacious producer, Veronica. Together we are here to lend our voices to the noise from a multi-generational perspective to help explain everything that's right and wrong in this world. Veronica, from our tax business, we do have a lot of mom and pop landlords. Tell me in your own words, how has this moratorium that's been treated like the proverbial can being kicked down the road, how's this affecting our mom and pop landlords?
Yeah, definitely. So we do have a lot of clients that have rental properties. They have businesses, obviously. And then in the other hand, we also have clients that are not paying rent.
Oh, yes. On the other side, the tenants.
Yeah.
We do see both sides of the coin.
Yeah,
Go ahead, I'm
so
sorry.
we have the two stories
both.
to kind of understand the perspective. Now, just a little bit of information based on the numbers from last week. About 6.9 million people have not paid rent.
Almost 7 million.
Yeah. So
okay.
Can you imagine, obviously, the stress that we are putting into landlords and then people who can't afford rent? So, I mean, that's a big deal.
It is a big deal. And the CDC has their hands tied, right? Because from a public health standpoint, if we were to see the majority of those 7 million people evicted and then end up under a bridge, I don't think anybody would argue that's a recipe for further disaster. So the mom and pop landlords have it really tough. It's a case of big bank versus little bank when you're dealing with a property management company that has an established attorney, that has an unlawful detainer process already set up. They already know how to ruin your credit, send you verbal warning phone and eviction notices, letters, correspondence. They have the machine to make a tenant's life miserable. Not even during the time that they're trying to squat, but also beyond when they finally are evicted and shoved out by the sheriff with a court order. They then have a credit report and a bad history that's really hard to overcome, especially if you're dealing with a low-income population. And so what you have is two sides of the coin. You have the big corporate property managers that have all of these resources to really push on a tenant and in many cases win outright. And then you have the mom and pop landlords where it's not a case of big bank versus little bank. This is just slightly bigger bank versus little bank, meaning mom and pop landlords don't have the time, the resources, money, or energy to put that type of pressure on a tenant. And so in many cases they're held hostage, right? We have seen that where you have tenants that are now armchair landlord tenant attorneys and have found through the internet whatever one sentence technicality loophole that now makes it extremely difficult for the smaller landlord owners to do really any eviction movement. And so you have a lot of people that are also using the moratorium as a way to extend the grifts. Now, here's the one thing that we do hear. We do hear from our clients how they are gaming the system. And isn't that true as far as the individuals that also are telling us too? And that's the point that we're trying to make. This isn't a black and white situation, is it? From a younger person's point of view, especially from a tax professional point of view that have had the benefit of hearing like a confessional the stories from both the landlords and the tenants. How do you see the eviction moratoriums working out moving forward, and who's going to get screwed in the end?
So one of the things that I was reading is that counties, states that are getting basically this type of assistance are the counties or states, depending on what state you're talking about, that are not vaccinated. So this is obviously...
It is a state-by-state problem that we're trying to address piecemeal, aren't we?
Yeah. So once again, this webcast, it's about the topic that we're explaining.
I know, it's a broad topic. Gotta stay on task.
It goes hand by hand with if the state that you're living in, it's not vaccinated fully with the people, and then you're facing once again having to extend the day. Now, I do understand the perspective on two sizes. The rental, the person who's a tenant, and
Right.
then the person who is,
landlord.
the landlord in this
Yeah.
case, right?
Mhm.
So it is pretty hard to be on one side or the other, just because you're not gonna push people on the streets, because that will be more money eventually that we'll have to put into those individuals,
For
right?
the public health concerns that will develop. There's no question.
Another thing that it's
And then don't forget about the landlord. The reason why we sympathize with the landlords is because they have bills to pay too.
Yeah.
In most cases, the property that we're talking about is either a single family residence home, maybe a duplex, possibly a triplex, maybe 4 units at most is who we're talking about.
Yeah.
When we say the mom and pop landlord. In most cases, there's an existing mortgage that still needs to be paid, property taxes, insurance. All of that's coming out of the mom and pop's budget. And when they're not getting the inflow of rental income, in most cases, that means the household finances just went into the red until something changes.
There's also funds that potentially tenants and landlords can apply, but now what it is that it's taking about 2 to 6 weeks for someone, just one person. Think about it. If there's 6.9 million people not paying rent, and you still have funds, but then the process takes about 6 weeks. How long is it going to take for us to get to those 6.9 millions?
No question.
And that's why we keep basically pushing forward the extension now. Before it was July?
Well, because imagine, where these people are now. They have established residences, mailing address. If you were to allow the evictions to go through, they would scatter. And then it'd be so much harder to get the direct rental assistance to these people because now they're not in that position to accept that benefit properly, right? They're still in transition.
So for everyone that it keeps saying, I don't agree with this, why are they not paying? Well, let me tell you one thing. If you are the type of person that are not vaccinated, and then that's on you as well to make sure. You're dealing with.
It all comes around. It's all related.
Yeah, you are part of the problem. You're not part of the solution because you're not getting vaccinated, and obviously that's another topic. But everything is kind of, combined.
There's no question that it's connected.
Yeah.
Final note: the one aspect of the eviction moratorium that you don't quite see is that also the bigger corporate owners, they have the legal paperwork already submitted. And even in the small amount of time before the CDC was able to enact the new moratorium to October the 3rd, there was a free Saturday. There was a Saturday where there was no federal coverage of any kind.
Yeah.
And so eviction paperwork went through on Saturday to the tune of the sheriff was ready Monday morning with the writ of execution, the piece of paper you get from the court in order to do something, in order to kick these people out. That already happened. Was it from the mom and pop landlords? No. These were all the ones that were through were the ones that had all of the big time lawyers making sure that their case was on the docket first.
Well, share what you think.
So
if you are dealing with something similar.
No question, the game is imbalanced for the mom and pop landlord versus the corporate landlord. Even from a litigation point, it's not about first come, first serve. Let me tell you that. So keep in mind that when it comes to the moratorium, think of the smaller individual mom and pop landlord and the bills that they still have stacking up on top of their own personal debt. And it is happening all over the country. So we need to sympathize, guys. Please be part of the show. There is no right or wrong answer, but there is your opinion. Please use the comment boxes below. We'd love to hear your comments. Don't just subscribe to the show, even though we will be doing this every day.